we go. And that is that. Okay. Just started preheating the oven. Now to start pre-chopping the chocolate. This won't take long. Hi there. Welcome to my kitchen on this Sunday evening, July 9th, 2023, where we have a not too heavy but very steady rain falling. And it is apparently going to be like this for the next 36 hours or so. Oh well, it happens. So what better way to pass the time on a Sunday evening than to do some baking? Especially since we have company coming for dinner tomorrow evening. And so of course this would be a good excuse to make some dessert for tomorrow evening. As the title and description of this video show, this is going to be a giant cast iron chocolate chip cookie. This was a project I had wanted to do last week for Independence Day, but unfortunately I did not have the opportunity to do so. So now is as good an excuse as any to make that cookie, because I have all of the necessary ingredients for it, including the flag decoration. So I don't think anybody will mind having the Independence Day cookie a week late. Any excuse for a good cookie, a big cookie, is a good excuse. And the way I do my cookies is I use two kinds of chocolate. As you can see, I'm chopping up some milk chocolate. And as soon as this is done, it's going to go into the freezer, which is good because it's the middle of summer and I don't want this stuff to soften. It'll only be in the freezer for like maybe about 20 minutes or so while we prepare the rest of the cookie. That will be enough to keep this chocolate hardened. This is milk chocolate. The other, of course, will be semi-sweet chocolate chips. So yeah, I like my cookies to have so much chocolate in it, you almost don't see the cookie. Almost, I say. The cookie itself actually is also pretty good. In other words, I am rather happy with this recipe. It also doesn't take very long. The most expensive part of this recipe is the chocolate. And it is, of course, about 100 times better, well, at least 10 times better, than those giant cookies that you pay $15 and more for at Wally World. It also costs about 1/3 of the cost of that giant Wally World cookie. In other words, the last time I bought one of those Wally World cookies, I can't even remember. It must have been, say, about 15 years or so ago. I mean, even though I have had, every so often, I've still ordered takeout pizza, even though I can just as easily make a pizza in cast iron. I have never had the urge to buy a giant Wally World cookie when this is so easy to make and so much better. Anybody who has made this cookie, I feel certain, would agree with me on that. There are, of course, about 100 different recipes for a skillet cookie online, all of which, including mine, are pretty much the same thing. Because, what can you say? There are only so many variations on a chocolate chip cookie. Good evening, Marcy B. I am seeing this on my phone, and I'm afraid I'm not able to permanently see the chat. It's like the comment window appears and then fades out. So I apologize if I miss, quite frankly, the majority of your comments. Anyway, we've chopped up about maybe 4 ounces or so, maybe more, of milk chocolate, and this is going to go in the freezer. Because I have to keep my workspace clean. Also means we clean off this board. Actually, we don't even need this board right now. So, yeah, because the rest of it is going to be done in bowls. Oh, good. The oven is already preheated, which is fine. Okay, so let's get this out of the way as quickly as we can, so as not to waste your time. And now for the other ingredients. A big bowl for the dry ingredients and a not quite so big bowl for the wet ingredients. And hello, Rick Stumbo, and hi, Brian, as well. Always nice to see you folks showing up. I am not demanding that anybody drop what they're doing to attend this live. You could always watch the replay if you want. Even so, I mean, the reason why I'm doing it live is, well, because it's fun to do it live, as I've found out. Even though there can be little foibles and, as they call it, chaos happening, it's a lot of fun. It's also easy to do. So here's 1 cup of flour, and here's a 2nd cup of flour. The recipe for this cookie is on my website, Cast Iron Chaos, and it's simply called Giant Cookie in Cast Iron. Nice original name. And this particular one gives the amounts that will fit either a 10-inch or a 12-inch cookie. Skillet, rather, I should say. 12-inch skillet. Okay, we've got that. We've got 1 teaspoon of baking soda coming up. Also, this is going to be part 1 because once this cookie goes into the oven to bake, well, that'll be the end of part 1. Part 2 will be when it comes out of the oven. 1 teaspoon of soda. And then we will get to decorate it for, with the cake decoration. I am no artist. The cake decoration is going to be very crude, but we'll see how well it turns out. Okay, 1 teaspoon of that. 1/4 teaspoon of kosher salt. But this cookie only takes a few ingredients. That's what I mean. It is so easy to make. About 1/4 teaspoon of kosher salt. Oh, gotta wash myself. And my secret ingredient would be, here it is. This is my secret ingredient that I use in my cookies. Cream of tartar, which I feel should be used more often in baking than it actually is. What does cream of tartar actually do? It is actually, I guess you could call it, it helps to reinforce the cookie, or the structure rather, of the cookie, so that it's less likely to crumble and fall apart. That's why it's used in things like cakes as well. It helps the cake hold up and give it less of a chance of, collapsing. And with that, always whisk together our dry ingredients. But yeah, as you can see, that sure didn't take long. This is not one of those ingredients with 10,000 recipes and 1,500 spices. because from here, and also, as you can see as well, I'm not using a mixer. That's how easy it is. From here, put this aside. Get together bowl number 2. Bowl number 2, of course, will be the wet ingredients, which is where we start with, okay. We start with 1.5 sticks of softened butter. And in fact, I softened this butter so much that it melted. But it should be cooled off by now. And this was done once again in a BS&R Lady Bess 1 quart cast iron saucepan. So yeah, these things are quite useful and I'm quite happy to have this. Alright, that's one ingredient. Next would be, okay, 3/4 of a cup of brown sugar. I have it, there it is. 3/4 of a cup coming up. One, 2, 3. You always use more brown sugar than white sugar so that your cookie will be good and chewy, which everyone loves. And 1/3 of a cup of white sugar. And here's the 1/3 of a cup. Let's get this spoon out of the way. 1/3 of a cup of white sugar. Back in there. Come on, there we go. This back. And just realized I forgot the Crisco. There it is. Okay, good. Alright. 1/3 of a cup. Okay. And to this, we crack in 1 egg. Something for the egg. I guess I'll just put it in eggshell. Just put it in here. Here we go. My egg cracking is just so wonderful, as usual. Alright. And then finally, 2 teaspoons of vanilla extract. There we go. And voila. And that is all the ingredients. Let me double check. Yes, indeed. Okay. And the hard part is over, so to speak. So now, start mixing this up, which won't take long at all. As I said, I'm not even using a mixer here. On the other hand, I think I should hold it together. There we go. Ah, yes, the wonderful smell of a little bit more than a cup of sugar mixed in with the vanilla extract. That is actually a pretty intense smell. Alright, there we go. Takes care of that part. Now from here, we come back to our dry ingredients and mix it in. go. As I said, my recipe does have a couple of twists above your usual skillet cookie recipe, but I like it. You know, try not to get that all over the place. Okay, and I do know that my recipe, it seems like the dough is less wet than some other skillet cookie recipes, which end up with a dough so moist that you could practically pour it into the pan. Whereas this one becomes dry enough that oftentimes I can end up kneading it with my hands. Although definitely this seems like this is definitely a moist dough this time, although I haven't quite finished mixing it in, I see. There we go. I suppose if I were ever smart enough to measure these ingredients with a scale, I would have more of a consistent result as far as the dough being wet versus dry. Also, it probably helps that it's the middle of summer and there's a lot of humidity in the air. As I mentioned, it's raining out. Even so, this will not be difficult. Oh, funny, I seem to feel as though it's... I really hope I did use 2 cups of flour. I'm starting to wonder. But no, this is actually giving it a good consistency. Maybe somebody could go back over and see if I was smart enough to use 2 cups of flour, because I'm starting to wonder, both from the quantity of this dough and the consistency. And more for me. Yes, but as I said, I'm asking a favor. Would somebody be kind enough to look back at the beginning of this video and confirm, did I put in 1 or 2 cups of flour? Because I'm actually a little skeptical. Would someone be kind enough to answer? If you don't mind, please. Did I use 1 cup of flour or 2? I may have only used 1 cup of flour and not even realized it. I'm supposed to have used 2 cups of flour. So if you don't mind, folks, that's all I'm asking. Would a person be kind enough to look at the beginning of this video and confirm, did I put in... I was definitely using a full 1 cup measuring cup. Yeah, because here it is right here. But I may have only used 1 cup of flour. Would somebody, can somebody kindly just again, I'm sorry to say this, but I honestly don't know, and I need your help, folks. You did use 2 cups of flour. Thank you very much, thank you. I honestly was not sure, which means now, thank you very much. That means we can go on with it. And put in our chocolate chips. Appreciate your help, folks. Because I tend to make mistakes like that. Anybody who knows me on this channel will probably know that already. So your help is appreciated. Basically, as I've said so many times before, I am not a professional. Doing this really for the fun of it, also for the experience. But yeah, actually, this is looking pretty good nonetheless. Okay, so far so good, which means from here, get to mix in more chocolate. Here we go. I need to look at myself. No, I didn't scarf down any of this chocolate. What are you talking about? But nonetheless, there we go. Once we have all this mixed in, that means it is now time well, I think I know why this didn't look like much. I'm used to doing these huge cookies and stumping my 15-inch cast iron skillet. That's why. I'm using a lesser quantity here, so I'm more used to these huge piles of dough. That's what I get for always doing it big in cast iron. Anyway, this is what I mean though. It's like, it's definitely a nice dough and it has a good consistency, but it's nowhere near as liquid as some of the cookie skillet dough recipes I've seen. However, enough talk, because now it's time for the cast iron. Here we are. Naughty. Another way to spell Marty B. Okay. This was a Christmas present from my brother last year. And it is, in fact, the Modern Lodge casserole dish. They're 9x13 casserole dish. Which is so wonderful that I'm surprised as any that Lodge did not make these things until they finally came out with their bakeware collection a few years ago. Wow, has it really been a few years since their bakeware collection? Yeah, actually, time is passing. But what I mean is that it's only been a few years. It hasn't been decades like many other Lodge pans. And a little bit on the sides. There we go. Once we do this, I'm taking one extra step. Normally, I would not do this. And that would be, cover up the Crisco, wash my hands quickly. Thank you again for your patience, folks. Anyway, because my next step, my hands are still greasy. Give me a second, please. There we go. Better. Anyway, my next step is to get out some parchment paper, because once this thing is finished baking, I want to turn it over onto a platter, which is different. Come on, do this right. There we go. Different because normally I'd be able to just simply serve the cookie right out of this pan. But as I said, it's not going to be quite done when the cookie, when it's done baking. There's another step. Oh, yeah, good enough. There we go. Good enough. So, I'm not taking any chances that way. Now for this, add just a little bit more Crisco. I might bet that it would probably come out of the pan without sticking, but I don't want to take any chances, because this is for company. But there we go. Now that we've done that, here comes the dough. Okay. There we go. The hard part is done. Now for the easy part, which is simply getting it to spread out. As you can see, there is plenty of dough here. It is definitely going to fill this 9 by 12 casserole dish with no difficulty at all. Ugh. Come on, no difficulty, he said. Ha ha ha. Yeah, there we go. There. Yeah, I think it's probably because of the hot weather that this is a nice and moist dough. Come on, just gonna get into these corners, even it out a little bit. There. And since this is actually going to be decorated with a flag design on the top, I don't even have to sprinkle extra chocolate chips on the top because it is going to be covered. But there we go. So yes, like I said, this is just the one on my web page that shows a 10 to 12 inch skillet cookie. As you can see, it works just fine in this 9 by 13 casserole dish. Thank you very much for your help regarding the dough, everybody. I mean, that was a crucial step. I could have made a mistake, and thank you for pointing that out. Okay, there we go. That means now it is going to go into a preheated oven. Using the parchment paper sling to remove it will help cut nice pieces too. Yes, exactly, hopefully. Okay, well, let me get this into the oven, and I'll say a couple of words. I know. Why do I always have to say a couple of words? Well, let me wash my hands quickly, but I want to explain what part 2 will be. Because, as I said, this is part 1 of this cookie. Anyway, I also said I am not a professional decorator, and I mean that, but what I'm going to do is, when the cookie comes out of the oven, I am going to simply, I have some, let me show you, in fact, instead of just describe it. Here we are. I have melting candy, red, white, and blue. So anyway, all I'm going to do is lay down rows of these things on the top of the cookie, you know, in the shape of a flag. You know, red and white and blue. Put them in rows. I'm going to stick them back into the oven at only about 200 degrees, just enough to soften these things so that I can spread them like a frosting on the top of the cookie. And that should allow me to get some relatively straight stripes and a blue field. So that should not be difficult, and that's what we're going to see in part 2. And because I've been talking already, this thing's been in the oven for about 2 minutes. So it is currently 20 past 7 Eastern Standard Time, which means in about 35 minutes, maybe 40 minutes, this will come out of the oven, which means it will be just a little bit before 8 p.m. And then will come part 2. If you would like to come back for part 2, you're very much welcome to do so. Unless you have something else to do this Sunday evening. But thank you very much. And I will see all you folks for part 2.